think we will make a start, and people will keep joining to the webinar. And with that in mind, I want to welcome everyone, in particular our panel and conversation group tonight, which is fantastic. And I will introduce everyone. In general, this webinar is actually something which I was really looking forward, energy efficiency in the homes, draught-proofing, and what steps can you take, what is important maybe to consider, but also, for example, what is scorecards and how can you incorporate that into your decision making. So coming from Germany, I think, like, for me, feeling comfortable in the home is something core essential, and it gives the quality, but it also connects me back actually to what a home needs to be. So with that in mind, I want to welcome everyone to tonight's session, and I'm hoping that we will have a great conversation with lots of experience and personal experience along that journey to improve our homes for comfort and health and efficiency. So before we start, I want to do acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Evitat acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people today. We are in particular here to listen, learn, and build a future together. So tonight I welcome Charlie Phillips from Earthworker Smart Energy Cooperative. Charlie will tell us more in detail actually about the company, the services, how they contribute actually to better energy efficient home solutions, but also what these service packages are about, and in particular also how it enables great energy efficiency and smart energy solutions within your homes. We also have Caroline Burgess. Caroline, just correct me if I might have not pronounced your last name in the correct way, but I hope you're on mute, Caroline, just to let you know.
Burgess.
Burgess. Okay. So I met Caroline through contact from our AEF. And I know that she is NEFES accredited energy assessor as well as scorecard assessor. And we will dive also deeper in how she actually does these assessment and why are they actually a great way to look into certain solutions, and also helping people actually to manage the journey part where you might be actually overwhelmed and making the decisions. So this is a really interesting part to dive a little bit deeper and to understand actually the processes involved. And we have luckily also Brian on board tonight. Brian, you have worked previously with Caroline together, I think, along your journey to improve your home. And I'm really happy that you joined tonight because you will be bringing in also your personal experience along the way and how I think you have done a scorecard assessment in the past.
Yes.
Yeah? And how that actually contributed to better decision making, what to prioritize, and so on. And then we have Daniel here, also a former AEF, Australian Energy Foundation. And Daniel has been on a journey over the past 10 years, I think, to improve his
Three
house.
years.
3 years.
Seems like 10.
3 years, and like he is basically my source of information and inspiration what to do around homes on all sort of budgets. So I'm actually looking forward to hear these stories. And in just a second. And of course, we have Simone Schenkel. Simone Schenkel is working very closely with us at Evitat together. Simone is also running her own practice, Green Eco Design, Passive House expert. And we have been talking a lot around our experiences coming actually from Germany, living now here in Australia, but also both of us have never felt so cold in winter in the homes we have lived in. So that also contributes to the way how we think the solutions and the homes need actually to improve, but trying really to deliver some guidance along the way. And I will tap into that later on, how Evitat can help in that space along the renovation journey, the home improvement and retrofitting. So myself, I'm co-founder of Evitat, and we embarked on this journey because of our own experience renovating a home after a cyclone damage, and it was quite overwhelming. And we decided we come from the tech perspective, but had already a lot of insights working previously also with a magazine in that space, and had a good deep insight actually into renovator pain points. So, and we've thought we can actually change the things, and I will tap into that a little bit later. But we are going to provide you basically this program tonight, and Simone will be the host. And from here, I want to jump into the first question. I will throw it into the group. Like, from my experience, we are renting here in Melbourne a beautiful old Victorian home. It has a lot of feature. It is absolutely beautiful, but it has massive cracks, gaps everywhere. We have 3 centimeters between our front door and the flooring. So here I am. I'm living in a very leaky home. And I would really like to throw this in as a renter, of course. How do I start with the idea of draught-proofing? Like, how would you actually guide me through the process? And maybe Charlie have a start, and then Caroline might join in.
Okay. Well, good day, everyone. As you know, I'm Charlie. I'm the operational manager at Earthworker Smart Energy Cooperative. We're a cooperative enterprise working in energy efficiency. We predominantly do high quality permanent draught proofing solutions to residential homes. We also do secondary glazing, and we do home assessments. Now, yeah, Sonja and I were talking earlier about both being renters. And I think the rental situation, or the situation for renters, is pretty dire in Victoria, at least, and probably the rest of the country, in terms of energy efficiency and especially comfort. There's very little in the way of minimum standards for new builds, and very little, I guess. I mean, you often think of the carrot and the stick approach to, I guess, standards of rental properties. There's very little sticks in the ways of I guess, the legal side of things to make sure landlords are providing a comfortable home, and also very little carrots, really. There's a split incentive in a way between the landlord not direct, or at least not immediately benefiting from any thermal envelope upgrades, for example, and the renter, of course, doesn't own the asset. So they might get evicted or move out in 6 months' time, and then they can't take those upgrades with them.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's an easy solution to our problem, other than I think opening that dialogue with the landlord as soon as you can. In my experience, that's what I've done. I started to lobby, and it took a lot of emails, but started to lobby my landlords to understand the importance of thermal envelope. And I guess and when I say thermal envelope, I mean, I guess, essentially draught proofing, stopping the air leaks in the home, and insulation, which are the two major or key upgrades you can do to be more comfortable and energy efficient at home, and usually often the most cost effective as well. I think the key may lie in convincing the landlord that those kind of upgrades, and this is probably where Evitat comes in, convincing the landlord or the asset holder that these kind of upgrades have value, have a lot of value, and are a selling point for when they either release the property or to keep the current tenant in the home. So I think that requires a lot of education, and unfortunately it's a lot of work, often on behalf of the tenant, but I think that's the place to start. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. And Caroline, what would happen if I approach you, with some guidance? Like, what would you actually recommend? And please also feel free to introduce actually Be Comfy as your company.
Yeah, so I'm Caroline. I'm from Be Comfy. I'm a scorecard assessor, a residential efficiency scorecard assessor. It's a tool that we use to do energy ratings on existing houses. I'm really passionate about energy efficiency myself and just saving the earth in general. So I've done a lot of these things myself, and I just wanted to do a job that was going to directly improve people's lives and also help with climate change. So yeah, I chose to do this job where I can work with residents like Brian and help them, although Brian's done pretty much all the upgrades himself, but work with residents who are uncomfortable in their home and help them be more comfortable and lower their bills and make their houses more efficient. Because I think everyone wants to be comfortable in their house. That's why I came up with my company name. Not all of us are green, into greeny things, or, we don't necessarily want to think about energy efficiency, but you certainly want to be warm in winter and you don't want to be overheated in summer. So I guess going on to the renting situation, following on from all the engagement with your landlord and things that Charlie talked about, I guess practically if I was going into a rental property and I saw that it was just riddled with gaps and cracks and, it had no curtains or all sorts of issues like that, what I would say is there are some temporary measures that you can put in place, where you're not going to damage the property or make changes to the property. Things like door snakes. You can use temporary hooks and rods to put in some curtains to cover the window to keep heat in on cold nights. There are lots of kind of DIY temporary solutions on the internet. Even there's a temporary option for double glazing. That's a shrinky plastic film that you can put on. So I would say consult a professional if you're really not sure, but you can just start Googling like DIY tips to do draught proofing online, and there's heaps of information on there. The second thing is when we're talking about draught proofing, I always like to make people aware of gas safety, because a lot of rental properties potentially do have old gas heaters. So before you start to do any draft proofing in your property, just make yourself aware of what kind of heating there is. And if you have a look on the Energy Safe Victoria website, I can put a link up on the community. Just read up a bit about gas safety. And if you have any concerns about the gas appliances, don't do any draft proofing. Certainly refer that straight to your landlord and make sure that your heating is safe, because gas heating can be dangerous if it's not maintained properly. So, yeah. Sorry, that was a bit of a doom sort of thing, but yeah, when you're sealing up the space, internal air quality is really important in the house.
Absolutely. I think this is a very important aspect. And I think, you know, while DIY solutions are always something to consider, but I think we need to be clear how to do it and to do it the right way. So for me, for example, I would probably definitely reach out to professionals in this case, you know, to have some guidance, how to approach it. I think even Charlie, what you mentioned, you know, to maybe have some guidance, even what are the easy steps maybe to approach a landlord. I think the landlord situation is very specific to look into, and therefore I will shift it a little bit more now to home ownership. This is the big part of also actually tapping into the opportunity to be part of a broader solution, also to decarbonize our homes. So I will hand it over now also to Simone to guide us through the next questions.
Thanks so much. That was great. And Caroline, you gave already a bit of an intro how you got into the whole, you know, market and, you know, helping people have better homes. But Charlie, could you give us a little bit of a background? You know, what was your mover, or, you know, what was your motivation to get into this field, just to, you know, for the listeners to understand a little bit where you're coming from as well?
Yeah, sure. So Earthworker's been around in the sort of energy transition, renewable energy technology space for a number of years, and we set up Earthworker Energy Manufacturing in Gippsland. They produce the solar hot water systems with the reclaim heat pump technology, and the reason we ended up establishing Earthworker Smart Energy, which is a separate enterprise but I think quite linked, is we wanted to start to link up the kind of threads of energy efficiency. So one, we can start producing tanks that are one of the best tanks on the market. But how can we further assist Victorians to make that, you know, eventual transition to an all-electric home that's efficient? There needs to be a lot of work done before, say, a hot water tank comes in, or a reverse cycle aircon, or solar, or even solar and batteries, and definitely before batteries come in, which is sorting out your thermal envelope, the thermal envelope being the insulation and draft proofing. So we noticed that good quality permanent draft proofing works, which require a fair bit of skill, a fair bit of carpentry knowledge, and so on, and a lot of knowledge around what products to use, was really lacking in Melbourne, and that the sort of Melburnians in particular were, you know, shivering in their homes, as I am right now, and not getting the most out of all the upgrades they'd already done. So perhaps they'd got their installation in when it was free back in, you know, from 2011 to whenever, then it was cut off of being a pretty poorly run project. Or perhaps they'd got the solar with all the rebates that are out there, which is fantastic. But meanwhile, the sort of what we call the low hanging fruit, I guess, the most bang for your buck, and the upgrades that don't require any maintenance, won't ever break down. These are permanent additions to your home. Draft proofing, you know, is not going to need to be repaired or anything like that, or replaced in 10 years, was just completely lacking from the space. So we made a conscious decision to start doing draft proofing for that reason. There's not a heap of money in it. It's not a highly profitable industry, but it's where it needed. It's where the service was needed. So we started in that space.
Yeah, I think one of the most important one. And Sonja, like you have said as well, I'm a big believer in, that you need help. Of course you can start on your own, but I think it's quite important that you get a specialist like you, Charlie, or you, Caroline, to come out, look at the house, where is the house at, where are the weak points, what are the things, and get a proper list, a master plan, what are all the upgrades you can do, and get the proper materials and things that you should use and where you use what. And if you have the DIY people, at least then they know what they can do themselves, but some things you should not do yourself and get a specialist on. And as you have said, Charlie, it's I think everyone in Melbourne or Victoria can feel it at the moment, the pinch. It is freezing cold. And like you said, it's actually not that hard or not that expensive to get the house draft sealed, and it's such a huge difference. And we have to promote it more, and people have to know their options, because I often find that people, they just sit in their house and either half freeze to death, or they put their heater on and they can't go out anymore because all their money goes to the heating bill. So it's either one or the other extreme. And I think it should not be like that. And I'm getting a bit frustrated with the government and what they're doing at the moment. It's often like always just looking at the energy cost. How can we reduce the energy cost, rather than looking at the source of the problem? How can we reduce the energy we need? And that's a hope, where we're coming in and Evitat coming in. Obviously you can't know what you don't know, so we have to give people the tools, what they can do and where they can find help.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And I think what I'm finding, we do energy sort of a home assessment to start the process with the client. So before we won't quote or do anything over the phone or anything, before we can get in the home and see what's going on. Because I think what's important, what we're finding clients appreciate is one, just getting in there and having that overview, and not treating each sort of element of efficiency and comfort in isolation. So we're not just, we don't like to just sort of just focus on the drafts or just focus on energy tips without factoring in insulation, your heating and cooling, your hot water, how many people are in the home, and that having that discussion as well. I think it's important.
Kelly, can I just ask, you mentioned, I might be wrong, but I thought I heard that you come in also with the consideration of carpentry. Like how would that be part of, because I can assume, like even looking at our place, that there could be heaps of solutions which require also a certain skill set, and applying that in a more holistic way, that it fits nicely and it's not just a patch up, because I tell you, when we moved in, like that's years ago, there was someone door knocking with these very cheap kind of solution of draft proofing. At that time, I was also in my early journey of understanding, and I thought, okay, let's do certain things, but they didn't last. They were really thick kind of temporary solution, which basically last only one season, if even, so they basically fall apart often enough. Like it was things in the chimney and other things. So I would be really interested, like how, what are these like specific solutions that might actually even involve other trade skills to basically deliver a holistic solution, really customized to the home.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly identify a lot of problems in the home, doors that won't open, or mold that's growing, or yeah, we can certainly identify a lot of broader problems that require certain tradespeople to do, and we have a lot of referral relationships, and we have in-house carpenters that can do some work as well. But we often find, I think the assessment will note that, inform the client if they're not already aware of it, which often they aren't, and then just provide that sort of here's some good tradespeople that specialize in it, and get them started on fixing the other stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that, like, I really appreciate that you take this a little bit more holistically. I think there's a lot of benefits in having someone or a company actually experienced enough to know who to connect you with, or even in some cases actually to manage the process to some degree. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
Good. Maybe Caroline, can you step us through a typical process? How would a in-home assessment look like, or what happens in an assessment?
Well, the assessment process starts before I even go to the house. So the whole thing with the home assessment is that it's tailored to you and your.
Caroline, I think your audio we're losing your audio.
Okay.
Or is that just me? I can't.
Very, very muffled.
I'll talk a bit closer to the computer. That's
better. Yep, that's better.
Okay. So a home assessment, the benefit of it is that the assessor's coming into your place, and they can see it all in detail, and they can talk with you and understand about your priorities, what other changes you're planning to make to the house, what your budget is, how you use the home. So before I even visit someone's house, I do ask them some questions to understand get a bit of background. So I do mostly scorecard assessments. So the scorecard is a nationally accredited tool. It's actually a piece of software that I use to collect information about the house. And it gives the house a star rating, which is a cost to run rating. So the more stars, the cheaper the house is to run. And it also gives you a measure of your thermal comfort of your home, which is how well the house performs on its own without heating or cooling. So when I get to the house, I have a chat with the householder and, talk through the process and understand anything, ask them some more questions. And then I'll go around and I collect data about the house. So the walls, the windows, the floor, the ceiling, the doors, the insulation levels, to understand the thermal shell of the house and how well it's performing in terms of keeping heat in winter and letting heat in summer. And then I also look at the major appliances. So that's heating, cooling, hot water, lighting, pools and spas, and renewable energy. So it's quite a structured process, the scorecard. And it's standardized. The idea is that it rates the house, not the householder. So it's kind of like buying a fridge. The fridge has the same star rating for everyone, but like if you leave the door open, your fridge is probably going to use a lot more energy. It doesn't consider whether you leave the door open or not. It just considers the fridge in itself, like how efficient it is. So when I do the assessment, I get the scorecard result, the star rating, but I also then give the client a detailed report which sort of translates the scorecard into the client's priorities and budget, and gives them tailored recommendations, because the scorecard only gives kind of generic information, which doesn't consider personal priorities. So yeah.
That's exciting. So yeah, that means that once someone has done a scorecard, they can clearly see where the issues are. I guess probably most people kind of know where they are, but at least you know exactly where they are, and you get some advice on what you can do to change it. But in your experience visiting homes and working with clients, what are the top 3 problem areas or, you know, big wins you typically find, or are there even some more, you know, easy, quick fixes or wins?
Generally with the houses I've been to, it's things like draught-proofing and insulation, improving the window coverings that I usually recommend to improve people's comfort. In terms of the appliances, a lot of houses have quite old gas ducted heating, and old heating systems are just less efficient because standards were lower in the past, but particularly ducted heating, over time the ducts degrade and it can be an incredibly wasteful way of attempting to heat your house. Sometimes you'll be heating the under the house or the roof space because the ducts are leaking. So usually it's improving the thermal envelope and then planning for appliance upgrades. We were talking about the planning of the changes. I've got a little bit, an image from a client's scorecard showing before and after with 2 different upgrade pathways, either looking at the thermal envelope or looking at appliances. So we could talk about that now or later, whatever suits you.
No, let's do. Can you share, please?
Sure. Let me test this. Okay. All right, so this is just,
here it is.
This was just an example of a whole load of different gaps you could have in your house.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Is it going to let me? This is an example of how your house running costs can change as you increase your scorecard star rating. So going from 1 star down to 3 stars, you can more than halve your energy costs. So that's kind of the early on changes. Just sealing your house up a little bit and adding some insulation can have a huge impact on your running costs, just because simply you aren't like heating your air and then letting it escape into the atmosphere.
That's such a good graphic. Just to jump in quickly, because I often have discussions with people that say, you know, I can't afford to do it, or, you know, I can't afford to put in new windows, I can't afford this, so why should I even bother, why should I even start? But, you know, this graphic here shows exactly why you should start, because even small changes can have a huge impact.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just an example house. This is what the scorecard certificate looks like. I don't know if you can see my arrow, but so up the top you can see the star rating. So the lower the stars, the more expensive your house is to run. And then below that, you can see the hot and cold comfort rating. So the more bars you get, the more comfortable your house will be in winter and summer without running any heating or cooling. So this house was an old weatherboard house, like 100 years old, gas ducted heating. It had an open fireplace. I could see daylight up the fireplace, up the chimney. Gas storage hot water. It had lots of leaky old windows. It had really thin curtains, that, you know, just sheer curtains, lots of gaps in the skirting boards. The exhaust fans didn't have seals. There was no insulation really. So I can use the scorecard tool to model the upgrades. So this was a thermal upgrade scenario. So sealing off the fireplace had an immediate energy reduction. Sorry. Immediate energy use reduction. I think it was about 16% was the prediction. And then doing draft proofing, putting good quality curtains on, adding ceiling, wall and underfloor insulation. Like, these are a lot of things, but you could do them over time. That predicted 50% reduction in energy use. And also you can see that the comfort bars have really gone up. So while all those changes would be quite expensive, you know, all together, if you gradually implement them, you're going to improve your comfort and lower your energy use. The other upgrade scenario was just sealing up the fireplace and putting in a new heating system, a new reverse cycle ducted system. So immediately you'd reduce your energy use. You might be a bit more comfy because your heating's performing better, but your house will need heating all the time, because it's still going to be hemorrhaging heat out through all the gaps and cracks. So to me, that really showed, you know, you can choose one path, you can get efficient appliances, but that doesn't help you with your comfort, you know, with your house's performance on its own. And you're always going to have to pay for this power. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to show.
No, that's great. Thanks so much. That's really good to know. And then, yes, so you talked already a little bit about, you know, how your draft proofing can save on your energy bills. I'm not sure, Charlie, if you want to add something to that, you know, when it comes to draft proofing and, you know, what the actual, you know, differences are, or maybe at that point we can ask Brian as well, because Brian, you went through the journey yourself, you know, to draft seal your home, you know, what the difference is for you.
Yeah, I was just thinking as Carolyn spoke about a client I was helping yesterday, the day before, and the sort of something that really stuck with them. This was a commercial property that I was assessing, but you know, they're a homeowner and have been a renter in the past, and they were asking me about heating. They're looking at heating options for their psychotherapy practice, and they were one of their colleagues was a bit worried about getting a reverse cycle aircon in, because they didn't like, they had a few points. They didn't like the feeling of that sort of hot, dry air, some people comment on it blowing onto them, and that sometimes they felt like their legs were cold and their head was hot. That is a telltale sign that they might have a brand new aircon that works perfectly, but their thermal envelope is like maybe it might not be very good, let's say. So, so essentially that means that, yeah, as Carolyn said, all that effort, all that energy, and all that money, of course, is just being pumped outside eventually, or most of it anyway, or half of it. So that has, you know, I could go on about the benefits of draft proofing is well documented in terms of energy savings, and I can go on if we like, but there's also there's lots of things to consider, I think, with how you'll see how your comfort, but also the effectiveness of your heating and cooling will improve. And you may, I think, often find that if you're looking to get new appliances in, or reverse cycles, or you're a bit skeptical, say, about reverse cycles, I get that a lot, but I say a reverse cycle aircon, which is extremely efficient, it just doesn't feel good. You prefer the hydronic or a gas heating or oil column heater or something. That may be actually due to you being used to an inefficient home. And if your home is efficient and tight and well insulated, that aircon hardly needs to work at all. It's just on a low setting and just keeping you comfortable for a very low cost. So that's my 2 cents on those points.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm a bit spoiled now. Like Sonja said, I have the pleasure now living in a passive house that's highly energy efficient. And we only have 2 split systems in the house, one upstairs and one downstairs. And during the night they're off, and during the day, once the sun is out, we turn them on, and then they run by the solar, free energy. And, it's not that they don't run on the highest setting or something, so you don't have the hot air blowing in your face. It's just really quiet, just in the background, which is really nice. But maybe, Brian, if we could have a little chat with you, because you went through this journey of, getting your home, whatever, draft sealed and, looked after. And can you maybe talk about a little bit your journey, how your house was before, or, what changes you experience now?
Okay. Well, I'm retired, as you can probably guess, and enjoying my 86th year of life.
Yep, that's great.
I started off as a electrical and mechanical engineer and worked at that in industry for a couple of years, and then went teaching in secondary technical schools, where I taught a subject to year 10 students called ecology and another one conservation. Now, this was in 1965, would you
Wow.
believe? After that, after teaching in secondary schools for 16 years, I went into a teacher's college and worked there for, the rest of my teaching career. I've always been interested in gardening and growing my own food. And my wife and I moved into our house here at Ferntree Gully in the year 2000. Now, it was a house that was built in 1974. And it was well constructed, but it was very tired inside. And we had to replace carpets and floor coverings. We had a 1974 kitchen, which we replaced, bathroom and laundry. And we moved in the year 2000, as I said, in February. The first week we were in the place, it was so hot, I wondered what on earth was going on. So I got up into the roof and there was 10 millimetres of inshal fluff.
Ooh.
So I immediately went out and bought enough R4 bats to line the whole of the ceiling, got up there and did it myself. Pushed the bats right across to the top plate. And as Carolyn will attest, I even insulated the manhole cover.
Well done.
Well done.
That was our first step.
And did that make a difference? Could you feel a difference after that?
Yeah, a huge difference.
That's great.
Yeah, it was reasonable in the place, but we then decided that we'd put in evaporative cooling. So we did that. And I put on external blinds and they worked very well. In fact, I found that they decreased the temperature in the house in the summer by about 2 degrees.
That's massive.
Yeah. Then, we moved into the place and discovered that we had gravity feed hot water and we'd been used to mains pressure. So I decided to put in a mains pressure system, and we have a north facing roof. So what better to put in than a solar hot water service boosted with electricity? And that first unit lasted 16 years and I put in a second unit. Now, in 2009, I put on 2 kilowatts of solar panels, and they've given me about 50% of my energy needs, or electrical energy needs anyway. And then in 2020, I bit the bullet and double glazed the place.
Wow.
So Carolyn came to really tell me that I'd done a good job. She gave me, the house got an 8.8 star rating. Excellent. With the gas ducted system. If we removed the gas ducted system, it got 10.
Wow. So
recently I've removed the gas. I've had the gas connection disconnected and it's totally electric.
That's great.
Now, draft proofing we're talking about. When we moved into the place, we had vents in the wall just above the window or to the sides of the windows up high. And they were quite drafty. So I got myself some 0.5 millimetre acrylic sheet and cut it to the size of the vent, glued it on with silicone glue, and you can see the vent and you can't see the acrylic sheet, but I get no drafts.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's and we put in a reverse cycle air conditioner in what I call the family room, and another small one in the bedroom, and they come on in the mornings to keep me warm, and I have them on a little bit at night. But during the day, I can live in the house quite comfortably. The temperature did get down to 15 degrees today, which is a bit low, but I've got my jacket on and I managed to keep warm.
Yep. That's amazing. Well done. But it's a labor of love. So you can, as you can see, it took a while to get there.
Yeah, well, it's been a process of 23 years. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's great. It's amazing. And not sure, Charlie or Caroline, if you want to jump in a little bit, talk about health benefits, what are some actual health benefits, when looking at draft sealing, because, we talk a lot about the energy and the comfort, but I guess there's a lot more to it than just, saving on your energy bills.
Yeah, sure. I actually was thinking about the Healthy Homes trial in terms of health and comfort. It was a randomized controlled trial run by Sustainability Victoria from 2019 to 2021, I think. And they did fairly basic upgrades on people's houses, the trial participants, and they did show a statistically significant improvement in, decrease in health costs for the participants, just for simple energy efficiency upgrades like draught-proofing and insulation. So there's actual data to show that improving the house can improve people's health and lower their health costs. It's known that if you're living in a house that is too cold, it's actually dangerous for your health. So, I mean, that's a big issue for renters. That's what better renting is all about, is trying to make houses more healthy for renters. Yeah, that's one thing around health.
We actually have a question in the chat, Caroline, from an Andrew, and it's kind of related, and it's a question about condensation and impacts about condensation. And yeah, Andrew asked what consideration is given by our panelists to the rise in condensation in the home due to draft proofing. Yes, maybe if you could chat about that, and maybe just generally about the impacts of condensation on your home and health and things like that.
Yeah, maybe if I can jump in there quickly. I guess Nicole has put a similar question after. Obviously, we have a lot of humidity inside our homes, and I guess what many people don't know is that, just by breathing and showering and cooking, we produce lots and lots of water a day. I think it's something like a 3-person household can produce up to 8 liters of water a day. And even the most leaky, drafty house can get humidity and mold inside a house. And the more we draft seal and the more we seal the gaps, the more we keep the water inside. So one important thing is, to open your windows, as much as you can and ventilate. But even when I studied architecture back then in Germany, our professor, building physics professor, said, it's just not enough. He said back then you would need to cross ventilate your home at least twice a day for 15 minutes. And by that, I mean, not opening an awning window or, something like this, a little tilt. He meant by that opening windows or doors opposite side of the homes for 15 minutes and completely exchanging the air. But, in reality, whoever does that, you might do that on the 20 degrees days, but you will not do it if it's 10 outside, and you will not do it if it's 30 or 40 outside. So, what are we doing with all this humidity? And I think, when you build a new home, this is where the passive house standard comes into play, where you have the mechanical ventilation that replaces and exchanges the humidity inside your home. But when looking at existing conditions, what we actually recommend is to look at the decentralized ventilation units. So they're fairly easy to retrofit for existing homes. or even as a step before that, you know, invest a little bit of money in really good sensors, because, you know, you can get sensors that tell you, you know, obviously what your temperature is or what your CO2 is, but also they tell you what the humidity inside your home is. And then you can keep a bit an eye on it. And if you can see, okay, it's really humid inside, you have to open the windows quickly. Or if it's too humid, then you might have to invest in one of those ventilation units and the decentralized units that they help you to get humidity out. But it's something we have to be really, really careful with, because condensation and mold usually happens where we don't see it. You know, it happens behind your plasterboard in your ceiling, and mold can form over years and years and years before you actually see it. So by the time you see it, it's probably been there for years. And then people wonder why they have asthma, why they can't shake off colds, why the kids are sick all the time. So it's a big, big issue we have to take serious, definitely.
From the perspective of renters, perhaps, who don't have a chance to make improvements and put in ventilation systems, I would say definitely if you're if you're trying to seal up the house, make sure you're running your exhaust fan after you've had a shower, and run it for, I think they say even up to 20 minutes to get the humidity down significantly. If you've got a lot of condensation forming on your windows after you've slept, it often forms in bedrooms because everyone's breathing in there all night. You can wipe the window down and with a cloth and just get that moisture off, because otherwise it just evaporates into the air over the day. When you're cooking, use the exhaust fan, especially when you're doing steamy cooking, just to get all that, as much moisture out as you can. And like Simone said, you know, open your windows and ventilate the house when you can, when it's in the middle of the day, when it's drier outside. Obviously, if it's a foggy morning, it's probably not going to help very much. But yeah, just consider, you know, what are the ways you can get the moisture out. Oh, and Simone, yes, don't dry washing inside.
No, it's tempting, but
and don't if you've got a dryer, make sure it's vented outside, because otherwise, you know, if you're drying clothes in a tumble dryer, an old style one, you could be just putting so much moisture into your home. So
yeah. And another thing is, even, you know, if you have moisture condensation inside your window, wipe it off. You know, don't leave it there. Wipe it off.
Can I just quickly jump in, addressing that question from Andrew? And it's a great point to bring up, but I think the wording is important. So the rise in condensation in the home due to draught proofing. So the first thing I would say, think to say is, one, it's not due to draught proofing. It's due to your windows is the thing that's called, well, it's the temperature outside, and then how thin or thick your windows are that's causing that condensation. So, but I think it's a good point to, it is a good thing to note that as you draft seal your home, yes, you may get more condensation on your windows inside, but that's because there's less air coming from outside to, one, maybe to evaporate it in the morning, but also your home is warmer, so your interior temperature is higher than the exterior temperature that's creating the air to condense on the window. So I think it's important to note that, yes, that can happen, but it's not the fault of draught proofing. I certainly wouldn't discourage people from draught proofing because of an increase in condensation. I think there's other ways which Carolyn has mentioned to combat condensation, and maybe possibly in the future think about double glazing, which should hopefully stop that as well.
Yep, it's true.
Draught proofing is not the enemy, and avoiding draught proofing and still having too much moisture in your home, you can end up with the moisture going into the walls and condensing in there instead, where you can't see it. So by avoiding draught proofing to try and avoid condensation, you're not avoiding the problem. You're actually just, it'll happen somewhere else where you can't see it. So
Yeah. I think this is really an important message, because I know from our place that's exactly what is happening. It is going currently through the walls. Internally, the bathroom walls are in particular an issue. And but on that note, I also want to say, like, you know, if this is even a mid-size renovation and you want to consider proper, you know, like improving draft-proofing, sealing the gaps and everything, but you have maybe also the chance to look in certain material choices. We had a while ago also a webinar around healthy material choices, which are vapor-permeable solutions. And we have, for example, also on Evitat, someone who is specialized in certain coating solution, which comes also with thermal benefits, like really increasing the thermal efficiency of internal walls, but it's a mineral layer. It allows basically also moisture to pass through without actually being conductive in terms of losing the energy within the room. And same applies also then for external. And so it's a really interesting aspect to consider. And I actually think when we're talking about health and the health benefits of going, you know, off gas and going all electric, yes, there's a great way to consider, but it's also to consider definitely, you know, how do I deal with mold and mold build up and the risk around this. So the educational piece, what Simone was even saying, you know, don't hang your washing inside. This is like the simple step actually, because it just creates so much moisture inside and it's trapped inside under normal circumstances. A lot of the paints internally are sealing off everything, and they basically just encapsulate that moisture, and moisture can't then escape anymore. So this will cause mold. Same thing happens also with internal walls and so on. So I think this is where expertise comes in, probably to also assess a little bit deeper, you know, what you can do and how can you actually approach. But also, I think a little bit as a homeowner to educate yourself, what is out in the market, what is maybe a really also healthy solution, considering also material choices and so on. So I'm very much for educating us as homeowners. Like we have even a house in Queensland, and we do need to deal with moisture, in particular during wet season and those kind of scenarios. But it's a real important part. You can't just have a house and then that's it, and you're not taking care and not considering. And I think Brian's story really highlights, you know, you need to understand how your home works. So where it has been built, what is the climate zone, and how it deals even with these circumstances around. Like we had recently a session around windows, and we also learned that even double glazing windows, yes, while it will help mitigate that problem, it can't completely remove the problem if you keep, you know, hanging your washing inside. Like there's these simple things. And what Simone tapped on was also like we as humans also emit a lot of moisture. Like bedrooms are very prone to the build up of moisture and everything. So here comes, I think, a little bit like in Germany, there was this rule, yes, open the windows. Like I still remember as a kid, my parents would open in the middle of winter. There was snow outside, it was freezing cold, but every morning windows were opened. And that was a rental property, and it wasn't really perfect because there was never cross ventilation, but it mitigated that issue to some degree.
And the other important thing is it has to do with building physics, that drier air heats up warmer. So if you get the humidity outside of your home, your house warms up faster. And just to summarize again, so the humidity is always there. So no matter if your house is whatever, airtight or not, the humidity is always there. So you always have to do something with it. So yeah.
On that note, Simone, just to understand, or maybe that's even for the experts in the group, I'm assuming also, like, if you are actually improving the thermal envelope of a home, you can actually maintain that nicer temperature, but that means also it dries off easier, the humidity wherever they accumulate. And at least that was always the case in Germany, because homes are usually built in Germany with fairly good heating systems, because you can't allow a home to drop to low temperatures, because the pipes would burst, and pipes are usually internally built into the walls. A lot of structural walls means bricks and other structural components. So I think that would cause massive damage and a lot of costs to repair. With that in mind, there was always the sense you need to heat 24/7 in winter your homes, and that would also contribute to mitigating actually the moisture built up, as long as you keep that heat actually running. Yeah. The issue is more that it's now very expensive.
It is.
Yeah. So Daniel, sorry, Simone, Daniel, maybe you can add a little bit from your perspective, what you have done also in the last few years in terms of improving your home.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you, Sonja. I'm conscious that we're a bit over time, so if people are happy to stay for a few minutes, that would be great. And also conscious that Simone's computer is probably going to die in a couple of minutes, but that's okay. So if Simone vanishes, that's fine.
On purpose.
Yeah, so I guess I can speak to a few things from my experience. Kind of touches on what we've been speaking about. I bought this place in Melbourne's north in 2020, and the fabric and the structure of the house was actually quite good. Kind of a double brick early 1970s situation. The windows weren't very good. It was a single glazed aluminium everywhere, but I've kind of been tackling that with honeycomb blinds to kind of reduce just the chill coming through the windows, and also done a bit of cellies and caulking gun around the windows on the inside and the outside to kind of, because they were getting a bit leaky and rattly. The house had been vacant when I moved in for a year, so I never turned on the gas meter and decommissioned the gas, and actually managed to get that done for free somehow, which was great, just because I'd never turned it on and never had an account, which was great. And again, it also, like Brian, had a 1974 kitchen, so that's now a bit newer with induction. I put in a hot water heat pump. I kind of did a lot of things around electrification, and in retrospect, I probably would have done some more insulation and draft proofing first. I assumed that there was more insulation in the roof than there was, and I put in a reverse cycle ducted electrical system pretty much for the whole house. And it wasn't until the installers came down and let me know that there was bugger all insulation up there that I knew, and it's actually going to be a lot harder to put any insulation in there now because the whole roof's full of ducts. Which was kind of an annoying oversight by me, which is something I would have probably done a bit differently. Yeah, and there are still a fair few gaps around, and I notice, especially at nighttime when it's particularly cold. I mean, I only have the reverse cycle on low, but after it gets up to temperature, and then maybe 15 minutes later, it will tick back on again when it dips under temperature. And I think a lot of that is going through the roof. and through a lot of gaps that I'm now realizing that I hadn't sealed. You can see in this photo from my living room, like Brian, I had a classic wall vent situation because I had gas ducted heating before. That's obviously been decommissioned now, so I don't need those wall vents. I went so far as to get some tape to cover them. Some kind of tubing material, but it was too thick and I haven't gotten anything else, so I need to do that. And in the back of that painting, you can see one of the floor vents, the old gas system. I've kind of closed those, but I was under the house on the weekend and the heating and cooling was on. And there's a gas ducted return in the wall that I haven't sealed up, that for some reason I assumed would be fine. I was under the house and just felt through those old tubes, just this hot air just roaring through. So I realized that there's actually, some draft proofing to do still. I mean, I have solar and the system's really efficient, and I've got a heat pump. So in terms of bills and usage, it's not that bad. But it's in terms of efficiency, and when I wake up in the morning, when the heating hasn't been on, it's still really cold in the morning, which isn't really great. And I did hang out my washing inside this morning when I left for work, so I'm feeling quite guilty about that.
You're not the only one.
Yeah.
It's all a journey, I guess. You know?
I think so.
It's all good. I guess we all learn along the way, and we do things, and then, you know, all of a sudden we connect the dots and change maybe. But behavior change is often slow. So I even fall back sometimes in typical things, and I feel then annoyed, or I get the next bill and then I'm looking like, oh, I need to do something. Yeah. So I will be probably the best candidate actually to reach out, you know, to one of you both to see what can I do, even within my possibilities to change something. And I think that's something really to consider. Daniel, just on that note, I think you can maybe also quickly share a little bit in terms of the logbook.
Oh, yes.
So what we do here is, for example, why actually we even started Evitat is really to capture these choices and decisions, like these conscious home renovations. We heard, you know, Brian is actually on that journey for more than 20 years. And I think that happens quite often. You start off with one information piece, you start off with one need or aspiration, and then you take on this journey and you are continuously improving because you experience the benefits along the way. So Daniel was actually great by putting all his improvements also into the logbook. The logbook is meant to support homeowner and making it more visible what they have done, and then also having the opportunity to collect and report in a sustainable home report. Whenever you are ready basically to sell, for example, your property, you can pull this together and you have evidence. So every professional installation, every purchase is recorded and added also to an impact meter. And I'll let you maybe jump in.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sonja. And we are thinking of building in soon things like the residential efficiency scorecard can be collated and put as part of your property kind of pack, which is great. So I've been using the logbook to kind of to track and log kind of the goals for things I still want to do around my house, and also using the log and impact tracker here to input improvements kind of as I do them, and also understand the gaps of things that I kind of still need to do. So with my properties goals, because I've done a lot of things around solar and a hot water heat pump and reverse cycle and things like that, kind of a fewer goals still left to go in terms of efficiency and carbon and things. But I was using this as an exercise for draft proofing. And so here's all the different areas in which you can log improvements and actions as you do them around the property. Yeah, and kind of by going through this exercise and using the logbook in this way, I kind of was one of the reasons why I realized there's actually a fair bit that I needed to do still in terms of insulation and draft proofing, and actually it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. So as you can see here, we're getting asked a question about different areas in terms of stopping drafts, and really all I've done is weather stripping doors and windows, and I have put in honeycomb blinds and helmets and heavy curtains to stop kind of cold air cycling against the windows and drawing more cold air towards it. But sealing around construction gaps and closing off wall and ceiling vents is still something that I need to do, and inputting insulation up here. As you can see, there's various options for doing that here. And then hopefully I can get towards ticking off some of these and getting my impact tracker closer up to 100, which will be very exciting. But yeah, no, I've been finding it a very, very useful tool for my journey. It's been great.
So this is developed with, I would say, you know, the changing climate conditions in mind, but also what external changes it might bring also to finance options. We are close in talks also with finance providers that considers banks, but also green loan lenders. And there's a lot of moving parts at the moment, but in future, it might mean when you do a renovation and you want to take out a significant loan for it, you need to prioritize these things first. And what we want to do is actually facilitate between the great responsible businesses on one side, and then capturing that information in a very easy way for homeowners, and passing it on then in future maybe to the next owner and so on. So this is where it creates tremendous value actually, and also for future generations. So this is how we see sustainable homes in general, to create actually 6 core benefits and include all aspects what sustainable homes mean. And on that side, I think we connect then back actually to the service providers, but also to materials and product solutions. On that note, Brian, I think you have mentioned, you know, for example, you have also focused on the garden and those kind of things, and that's all part of that consideration. It's a holistic approach. It includes also aspects of well-being, also to have, you know, garden to maybe also contribute with shading and so on. So all these 360 aspects of a sustainable homes are part of that journey. And if someone wants to give it a try, we will be probably launching a lot of changes to it in the next few weeks. But this is a pilot at the moment. But it's a great way actually to give us feedback and to be part of that journey as well.
Yeah, jump on in and give it a go. Just as one last quick example before I stop sharing, we have a recommended next step section, and the top here for me is find a home energy assessor. And if I follow this link through to consultant, you may you should be able to see a couple familiar faces, Caroline and Charlie. Oh, it's just logged me out, but yeah, my Google is being weird, but yeah, they'll take you to a page to see Caroline and then Charlie's profiles, where with more information about them and how you can get in touch. Yeah, so please feel free to get involved. Well, I'll put a link to for everyone to start into the chat now.
Yeah, great. And this is also recorded, so we will be sharing soon after the event also the recording. So feel free to share this across with everyone as well. On that note, thank you to everyone who participated tonight, and in particular, all our panelists. It was an absolute pleasure to get that insights of the work, the services you provide, but also the personal experiences. I think that combination has a great value for a lot of people to educate themselves along the way, and also to navigate and be guided actually through the experience, what to do and how to improve the home energy efficiency, but simply said, the comfort of the home. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you, Brian, in particular.
Very much, Brian.
It was a great pleasure having you as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hear more along the way from Caroline about your journey and how you keep improving your home. Everyone, thank you and have a great night. See you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, everyone.